Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Body Wise Podcast. I am your host, Cristina and founder of the Castaway Kitchen, and I'm really excited about today's episode. Laura, my co-host, will be joining me, but today's guest is going to give you guys so much good information on the theme of this season of Body Wise Podcast, which is menopause. We have best-selling author Dr. Anna Cabeca. She is known internationally as the Girlfriend Doctor and the host of the Girlfriend Doctor Show, where she welcomes experts and guests to the show to share their insights on how women can truly thrive in their body, mind, and spirit. Dr. Anna is a triple board certified and fellow of gynecology and obstetrics, integrative medicine, anti-aging, and regenerative medicine. She holds special certifications in functional medicine, sexual health, and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. She lectures frequently on these topics throughout the world to large audiences. Her first two highly acclaimed books, The Hormone Fix and Keto Green 16, are bestsellers. In addition, Dr. Anna is the creator of several popular virtual transformation programs, the Keto Green Way to Breeze Through Menopause, Sexual CPR, and Magic Menopause. She offers Keto Green nutrition plans to online subscribers, is the founder of her Girlfriend Doctor Club, and the host of the vast Keto Green community on Facebook. She's very passionate about and a health advocate for both women and men. And she's appeared on numerous television shows and been interviewed by ABC, CBS, NBC, and sought after all over the media. She's been featured in Women's Health, Nutrition, Weight Loss, and Hormone Expert and Shape Magazine, Women's World First Magazine, InStyle, HuffPost, Mind Body Green, and others. And I am so excited to have her here now on Body Wise Podcast. So let's get on with the show. Thank you, Anna, for being here. Laura and I are so excited to have you. I did your intro, but I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you do what you do.
Oh, well, Cristina, Laura, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. So yeah, I trained as an OB-GYN and I've just been passionate about women's health for my entire life. Like at a young age, my mom was in and out of doctor's offices with diabetes, heart disease. By an age younger than I am now, she had undergone her first heart surgery. And what I realized, I was 16, she was 52. And I realized that the research they were basing her care on was performed on men. And I became such a strong women's advocate at that time. And I am to today because, I would like to say a lot has changed. At least there are some more studies looking at women, but usually they end up in mass failure. So it's important that we as women take the power back over our body. And that's what I'm so passionate about. So in my social media, and my books and my website and my products and all of that, it's to really empower women at this stage to take back their power.
That's amazing. Thank you. We're really passionate about that here as well. We're big on advocacy, self-advocacy, patient advocacy. And I love that. So you're an OB-GYN, you're an MD, you're a doctor, but you also are like functional medicine and certified in all these other modalities. Like how and why did you decide to integrate so many different methods into your practice?
Yeah, and definitely it's part of my own personal journey, Christina, because going through residency, and I trained at Emory University, I say one of the best institutions in the world. I came into my own solo medical practice in rural Georgia because I was National Health Service Corps. You're a military family, like National Health Service Corps. We go where we're needed, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was the first OB-GYN, let alone bilingual OB-GYN, Spanish and English, that really was in this area ever. And I had to take care of patients in a very economical way and of course, and being the only provider to solve the problems. I thought absolutely my job to solve their problems. And with all that, I started growing in functional medicine and understanding root causes and getting deep into the underlying physiology. And even knowing all of that at 39, I went through my own early menopause. And I was told that I would never be able to have another baby. So 39, premature menopause, failed the highest doses of infertility treatments. Wow. My reproductive endocrinology specialist said, Anna, the only opportunity you'll have is with egg donation. And so that broke my heart. And I took a sabbatical from my medical practice and went on a journey around the world, honestly, just part of my healing journey. I mean, grieving, it was grief upon grief for, traumatic situations in our lives. But, I went on this journey around the world and I met some of the most amazing physicians around the world, some of the most amazing traditional healers, like in an Indonesian medicine man, an Andean philosopher, a shaman from New Mexico. I mean, just different people around the world serendipitously. And as a result of that, I reversed my early menopause and naturally conceived and delivered my youngest, my baby, Ava Marie, at I was 41 years old. So
Wow.
years after I was told I would never be able to. Now, as an OB-GYN, when we're given a diagnosis, and when we give a diagnosis, we have to be so careful because that's almost like written in stone. Well, it's really not. And that woke me up. So Ava Marie is now 13 and a half years old, right? I'm 55 this month. And, I mean, it's just changed. That changed the way I approach my patients, my medical care, my practice, and I kept looking for answers. So one board certification wasn't enough. I got two more.
Wow.
So
Oh my gosh, that's incredible, Anna, and so inspirational, and like that's amazing. And I love how her name's Ava Marie. If I had a girl, I was gonna name her Ava, but boy, that's awesome.
thank you. Thank you. It's a blessing. So I say, God had my hand in every step of the way. And then as when you're given much, much is expected, right? It says in the Bible. And so, like what we're doing, sharing our information, sharing our knowledge to the best of our ability. And that's what I'm so passionate about. That's why I'm really honored to be here and share this information with your audience.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so happy that you're here. So menopause is, again, we've talked, like it happened to you, it happens to so many women. They get this diagnosis, they also this change starts happening, and there's very little support. I feel like perimenopausal, menopausal women, we've talked about this on the show, Laura's passionate about this, are kind of this subset of women that are often just dismissed by society. So what are some of the challenges that you see that, that I know you work with, this is very much in your niche, right? That you help women through this. What are some of the challenges that you see right now with menopausal women?
Well, definitely that people are told, oh, you're too young to be going through menopause. That's a really big one. And so they're left to suffer for a decade before they're of menopausal age, right? So for me, 39 and early menopause, well, what was happening? Stress, toxic lifestyle. I mean, all of these things, trauma, grief. That was the toxins that put my ovaries, let's say, in retirement
Mhm.
for a short term. So like understanding what's going on and stress in our life, like women are experiencing incredible hormonal fluctuations in this season of our lives because of chronic stress, pandemic stress, and uncertainty of what's to come. And this is what's really, I mean, we this is what's really happening, and we have to address it so that you're not too early in your 30s to be experiencing menopausal symptoms. We call this perimenopause. But look, just like I did at 39, completely reversed that for almost another decade. And then at 48, went through another downward spiral. Life happens, y'all. Life happens. Single mom, raising kids, craziness. And, closed my medical practice in Georgia at that time. I mean, just burnout, right? And another menopause at 48, more age appropriate, but I was able to reverse it till finally this year at 55. I think I'm finally menopausal. So that's the effect that stress and, hormone disruption can have on your bodies. So we can reverse it. We can have normal, healthy cycles. And the symptoms, the weight gain without doing anything different, the brain fog, the memory loss, you mess up your kids' names more than usual, things like that, and, call your husband the wrong name. I don't know, things like that should not be happening. We cannot afford brain fog. It is not good for life. And so what are, like in these things, that weight gain is so troublesome too, but hot flashes, unremitting hot flashes, and then sexual side effects, a decreased interest, decreased desire, discomfort. And then that all, contributes to further relationship disconnect, which we need these healthy relationships now more than ever. And so the biggest issue that I have with the problems that are women are experiencing when they go to a doctor for answer is that they're too young, or that they're just being offered birth control pills to just kind of get them through, even if they don't need birth control. They've had their tube tied or their husband had a vasectomy, or and they're not being, the fear around, the myths around and misconceptions around bioidentical hormone replacement, which I think is very beneficial and essential, so much that, I really create some natural options for women, because it is game changing, especially in menopause and beyond, post menopause, for our quality of life, so that we can have longevity and healthy, live our passions. We work so hard. So let's enjoy life with good health. I mean, how great. We need to. That's our right.
Thank you for bringing that up, Anna. It's definitely a topic that I explore often with my students. And when you are speaking, what keeps coming up for me is just education, this level of awareness about our bodies and how to create a life that nourishes our bodies and our hormones, instead of, starting to crash or burn out at a certain stage in life. And then that's when doctors start giving us these diagnostics or feedback that continue to disempower us, right? It's almost like, oh, you're lacking this. Oh, here's your diagnosis, that sentence of what you've run into. And because we grow up knowing so little about how female biology actually works and thrives, like having conversations about, how does female biology thrive? Like, what are the conditions necessary for that to happen? Then we end up collecting medication. We end up collecting certain diseases or chronic conditions that, little do we know, can be healed. Little do we know our body can mend. And you use the term reverse or just restore. And I think essentially having this conversation just again and again and again, like, we cannot have it enough, because even the awareness that our science is based on male physiology, that all of the research and all of that medication that's been recommended for years was only tested on male bodies. And how that has, what the implications of that over a long period of time between our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, and how we've even inherited parts of that. We want to bring in how we carry what our ancestors experience and then how our bodies adapt to that. So when we talk about perimenopause and menopause, and it's a kind of the thing that women dread. I mean, that's the overall feeling. Now there's a few women who are like, oh yes, I'm so looking forward to this initiation. I rarely run into somebody that says that, but
we may want our periods to stop, like, okay, just make them stop. But yeah, no.
Right. We want our periods to stop. Some of us want our periods to stop because it's an inconvenience, but everything that comes with, like, oh, women growing older, even that, no one wants to touch it. Right. And it's kind of ridiculous, because in your 40s and 50s, like, the 40s and 50s are prime for men, and a 40s and 50s for women is past that, and it's because we continue to look at women as reproductive bodies versus as a whole person, not basing their value on their capacity to do that reproduction, right? Which is so silly. And I think the beauty of, someone like you who had such a personal embodied experience of what it means to pick up the pieces and to challenge what you were told, and to then go on this journey that it seems like life decided to show you that there is a way to heal, whether you were looking for it or not. It's like, listen, Anna, you are going to find this and you're going to have to bring it back. And this is part of what I think so many women in their own way, little by little, which I think is just happening now in a greater way, women saying, hold on, we actually have way more power than we're told. And we do need to challenge what has been told to us and what has been fed to us about our bodies and about healing and about science and even medicine. I mean, and I'm a huge science geek. Like, I love science. Oh my gosh, I could just go nuts on that. But I have to recognize that there's this part of healing that has very little to do necessarily with the more intellectual part of science and medicine. And so I'm really interested in your experience with women who
like you said, your ovaries were like, no, like we're done, and there is this like almost there's a biological but a spiritual component to your body responding and saying, no more of this toxic, no more of this pain. We need to do something, and bringing it into real life. You worked in, these areas of Georgia where, like you said, you had to be economical. These people are living in a maybe really challenging way. And that's kind of what I come up against. Like, how do you bring this to women and say, I know you're living a really hard life, but you can heal. But if you want to heal, there's like major changes that have to happen that you need to look at, and it's that's tricky. Like, you know what I'm saying? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's so good. It's so important, and I love what you're saying, because for me, I want everything to be accessible. So I'm first generation American. My mom's from the Middle East, and dad's family's from Portugal. And so I'm first generation American in this. And my dad was military. And my mom was sick from her 30s with diabetes and some other health issue, then heart disease. Right. And so economically, like she couldn't, like afford a concierge physician and again, I think we should all have a concierge physician, but how the information that she was getting from the best, right? From the hospitals, from the physicians, military physicians, and this, getting, highly educated information, but it was the wrong information. It was information that led to diabetes, that it led to heart disease, that led to early death at 67 years old, right? And that when I look at it, and I write about this in my first book, The Hormone Fix, I mean, it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones. And it's 90, I like to say 90% in our own control, because I'm still egotistical physician. I want that 10% to say, I helped you with that 10%, but it's probably like 1%. Like I come in with the prescriptions or the surgeries or whatever, that's that 1%. But that 90%, that 99% is the nutrition, the way we nourish our mind, body, and spirit. You're right. It's not just about our body, it's about our mind and our spirit. The nourishment, whatever forms, how we're nourishing ourselves, the lifestyle changes that we need to make change. And so, especially in this perimenopause, menopause, like I want to just shout from rooftops, like we are designed to shift during this time. We're going through a hormonal shift. It makes sense. We've got to shift our lives. Like, really, where is our attention? Where is our focus? What are our passions that we've yet to realize? And how can we achieve that? And so for me, it's like it's wrapped up in what I write about in the Hormone Fix and the Keto Green Way, and this nutrition and lifestyle, the shifting our nutrition, the way we nourish our body, so that we're fasting more. We stop the snacking. We're eating keto green, so good, healthy keto foods with a lot of green alkalinizing foods, and just nourishing our body. Maybe 2 meals a day is really enough for us for the rest of our lives, as I like to say, breeze through menopause into the second spring of our lives. And so, and with that, it's managing these hormones that affect all our reproductive hormones, especially cortisol, our stress hormone. That will deplete our progesterone, will give us irregular cycles, will make us not sleep well at night, will, decrease our sex drive, will give us thinning and dry hair. I mean, if we are in this cortisol and gray hair, not to mention gray hair, so, that's that cortisol hormone. And then that's where the alkalinizers, the alkaline lifestyle, the positive thoughts, the gratuity, the spiritual practices, that we encompass, helps to conquer cortisol by empowering the hormone we need, especially during this next stage of our life. And that's oxytocin, the hormone of love, fun, joy, connection, like playfulness, all of that. That's that oxytocin hormone. And when we empower oxytocin, our stress hormone cortisol goes down, and our reproductive hormones play better in the playground, so to speak. And that's what's really, really powerful. So when women are coming in to a gynecologist during this time, this 35, 40, 45, 50 and beyond, they're experiencing a lot of the GYN symptoms, the breakthrough bleeding, the PMS, and I will say, if you only hate your husband 2 weeks out of the month, it's probably your hormones, not necessarily your husband. So like that, I mean, physiology drives behavior and attitude, right? And so we have to understand, okay, well, what's happening here? So these symptoms that women come in for are not just endocrine, not just gynecologic, they're neurologic as well: anxiety, depression, brain fog. And that's because during this transition, as our hormones are changing, and in our mid 30s, progesterone's declining, DHEA's declining, both of those are precursors to estrogen and testosterone, or reproductive hormones. So it's going to affect our sex drive. It's going to affect our menstrual cycles. It's going to affect our vaginal mucosa, vaginal dryness. It's going to affect aging. All of that will affect aging. And so, as this is happening though, progesterone, which is very neuroprotective as well, converting to estrogen, we know that the brain, in order to use glucose for fuel, it's an estrogen dependent process. So gluconeogenesis in the brain is an estrogen dependent process, and most likely progesterone too. As we get the shift in hormone, our brain starts starving for fuel. We have more hot flashes, more hunger cravings, more weight gain without doing anything different. These symptoms are happening. But if we shift to this keto green way that I described into ketosis, the use of ketones, fat molecules for fuel, is not hormone dependent. So all of a sudden you go from this fog, this cranky, this irritable, like not at home in your body, to being like the light bulb back on, to tapping into your passion. So again, it goes beyond these reproductive hormones. And as women, we're so afraid of estrogen. We're so afraid. We don't need to be. If anything, even the bad studies that we have had on women, like Women's Health Initiative study, I mean, it did show us that estrogen's safe. Estrogen is safe. And especially if we go to transdermal or topical estrogen or vaginal estrogen, we can be very safe, even our most at risk, like breast cancer patients. So I really think that dispelling that fear and shifting our physiology, our lifestyle is empowering. And if we as women sit back like you are, Laura, and just saying intuitively, we know something's not right? Like, and tapping into our intuitive wisdom as women, that's powerful. Trust it. Trust it. I always tell women, trust that. Trust it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely trust it, because I think that's what's going to push you to find something better. I mean, I think every step of the way, when I was in my 20s and decided this hormonal birth control sucks and there has to be something better. Like, that's really how I got into this field, because in my early 20s, I thought there's no way that this is the answer. And that like the effects I was feeling is something that millions of women are putting themselves through. And there was just something that intuitively felt just messed up about that. And I decided I need to find something better so that my life feels better and my body feels better. And then just dispelling that made me realize how little we do that, how often our culture is just saying, well, women have to bear the brunt of being a woman. So you're going to have to endure this procedure or this medication, this assumption. And just like you're saying, this is a time for change, right? We're so stuck in wanting things to stay the same and so afraid of hitting this phase in our life where, like, you're inviting women to say, well, what are the things that I need to shift so that my body feels good? What are the things that I need to change? Because you can't suppress it. You can't deny it. You end up in this place where your body's just not letting you anymore. It's not going to stay the same. And wouldn't it be so wonderful for us to say, well, there's number one, there's healthcare providers that can support you through that, just like you're doing. And at the same time, there's a new perspective to look at this, bringing in science, bringing in spirituality, bringing in this kind of soulful experience of what it means to be a woman who's coming to the end of her menstrual cycles. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we begin that at an early age, when a girl begins her menstrual cycles, and say, welcome into this, and let's talk about the spectrum of life and how it begins this way and it will one day end this way. And these are the things, because just like you're describing, the fluctuating hormones and the body adapting, we know that our adolescents, experience something very similar. And they also experience gynecologic issues around that because their bodies are beginning to cycle, their hormone levels are all over the place. It's the body's learning to do something new. And instead of shoving birth control at them when they're 16, 15, whatever it is, I mean, like,
Amen to that. Amen to that. Seriously. Yes. Yeah. And it's just like puberty is natural, menopause is natural. Suffering is optional. Suffering is
Yes.
And what
yes,
we
thank
do
you.
nutrition wise at 12, 13, 14, I mean, from, from conception, all of those things makes a difference on the hormonal picture later on. And I agree, like let these transitions need to happen. Suppressing them is not a good idea because we're rewiring our brains for another stage of life. And if we suppress this, how is that affecting us?
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. I wanted to dive in a little bit to the diet because I mean, I have your keto green book. It's excellent. I know when we talked last summer, actually, I think it's almost been exactly a year since we
I
talked.
think
I was
you're
in your book.
right.
Yeah, but I love your approach to keto. And I know a lot of our listeners, a lot of my audience, they're women who dabble in keto, low carb, kind of paleo. And so I have two questions. One, if someone is, let's say, even a woman who's been in her 20s and 30s and pretty much been low carb keto for a while, can she just continue, or is there going to be a shift? And two, for women who are scared, who are like, well, I have thyroid issues, or my doctor said I need carbs for this. How do you like respond to those kind of concerns?
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest, I'm going to start with the adrenal issues first, because I was here, I have adrenal fatigue and my doctor said I need, I need three meals, three snacks. I need to snack throughout the day or 6 small meals and all that's like bullshit. No way. You're really hurting your adrenals. You're hurting your blood sugar management. Like I said, major hormones, insulin and cortisol and oxytocin, insulin sensitivity. We have to be insulin sensitive. And as we train our body into insulin sensitivity, we can have more feast days. We can have more carb heavy days. But I always think there's that metabolic flexibility we should have. And this is where we need to listen. Like like when we're menstruating, right before our menstrual cycle, carving up a little bit with healthy carbs, like your sweet potatoes, your chocolate. I mean, there's medicinal benefit to chocolate. I'm all for it, right? I mean, just thinking of like where we need to adjust based on where we are in our cycle. Where do we celebrate? And I think for women as we get older, there actually maybe something to our lunar cycles, paying attention at a full moon, right? When we have a full moon, tides are higher. We're a high percentage water. We're going to feel fuller. How does that interact with our psyche? How does that interact with our physiology? Is that the time for a feast, a celebration? I mean, where can we plan out our dinner parties? I mean, whatever it is, so that we're physiologically honoring our design, our epigenetics, right? Our environment, consistent with our physiology, because we are organic material. We're not supposed to be the same thing every day. On a daily basis, we fluctuate. On a monthly basis, we fluctuate as women, and that doesn't stop after menopause. I really know from working with tens of thousands of women now that there's some interesting anecdotal information around this, right? There's something to it. And that's, again, part of tapping into our intuition. I kind of have this rule, like, especially again, because of the brain fog, and women are at 2 times the risk of Alzheimer's as men. We've got to get into this. We have to become insulin sensitive. We have to use ketones for fuel at least half the time, right? I usually say 10% fasting, 80% keto green, 10% feasting. That metabolic flexibility is so important. We have to, just like with workouts, changing things up, and I kind of get frustrated because I like to do a certain thing. And I'm like, okay, I've got to add this other thing. I got to go for a walk or a jog, or I've got to go lift weights. And it's not as fun as hot yoga. I mean, so, but you get into this, but you have to push and challenge your body. You can't do the same thing every day. Change it up. That's the goal of metabolic flexibility. And so I think, especially for women that have been doing, listen to what feels good. I have a woman in my Magic Menopause group. She's in my Girlfriend Doctor Club now. And she's been with me since 2015, starting with my first Magic Menopause program. And she's 67 years old now. And she when like she really resists those carb up days, she's really careful, and she's had to play over these years what she can do for a carb up, because it ignites cravings.
Mm-hmm.
It ignites a drop in her willpower. So she's really, really careful about that now. And so it's very few and in between where she has more of a carb up day, and she lives like, amazingly in this, in this keto green state for the majority of her time. And that's beautiful. I'm not at that stage. I like my feast days. I like my celebrations, and so I'm not pushed to that level yet. But I think going back to what Laura was saying, when we're pushing our body and our bodies are out of balance, thinking, what is it going to take for us to do something different? Is it going to take that diagnosis of Hashimoto's or hypothyroid? Is it going to take that diagnosis or that, determination? I think you need a hysterectomy. Is it going to take that you've got breast cancer? Is it going to take that scare or autoimmune disease diagnosis? What's it going to take? Those diagnoses are a product of 10, 15, maybe 20 years working up to this point. So shifting, the earlier, the sooner, the better, is critical, because what's it going to take to all of a sudden say, you know what, I got to listen to my body a little bit more. I got to stop pushing myself so much, or, these habits, I know my inner voice says that's not good for me, but yet I've been doing it anyway, like, and making that realization, making that trade-off, so that we're not given a diagnosis. And if we have been, Lord, I've seen it reversed so many times. It is not written in stone.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually dealt with several women in my coaching group who've had early menopause, and then were maybe having some pain or whatnot. And there's been more than one who've had like just hysterectomies. Like that's just like in 30s and 40s, like it'll solve all the problems, and yet there continue to be symptoms and complications. And I just
After
wish
the fact,
after
right?
the fact, right?
The uterus is an innocent bystander. The uterus is an innocent bystander. It's not the cause of your problems. It's a result of hormone imbalance and inflammation. I write about this in the Hormone Fix. It's so important. So as I learned, and I trained traditional gynecology at Emory University. I mean, very skilled at hysterectomy, surgery, vaginal hysterectomy, name it. I love surgery. And sometimes I miss surgery, bladder procedures, sling procedures. Oh my gosh. So, but as I learned, as I got better with like this functional medicine approach, detox, the keto green detox that's in the Hormone Fix, learning that, again, diet and lifestyle, using bioidentical hormones like my balance cream, using, adaptogens in our diet, nutritional supplements. I went from needing to do 2 to 3 surgeries per week to 2 to 3 major surgeries per year.
Wow.
That's the difference. That's the difference. So, if I did, hysterectomies on a regular basis, didn't need to anymore. If I did bladder slings on a regular basis, I didn't need to anymore, as I healed their physiology, as I addressed the underlying issues that were causing the problems. And that's so empowering for women, because we know that especially when we maintain our ovaries, even after age 65, we have less heart disease than women who have had them removed. Now, I would have anyone listening that have had a hysterectomy or had your ovaries removed. I mean, it's, we can help, because using bioidentical hormones, especially like progesterone, and pregnenolone, that's in my balance cream, using adaptogens to support your body, using, and again, nutritional support. So like my Mighty Maca supplement, superfoods, using a healthy diet and lifestyle like you write about, and I write about, I mean, the nutritional balance, using food as medicine, all of this impacts our physiology in a positive way. So there's something we can do about it. But if you've had your ovaries removed, we definitely want you on I want you on a bioidentical estrogen and progesterone, and maybe some DHEA and testosterone. A little bit goes a long way for the rest of your life. I mean, for the rest of your life. And we know that when we do that, it counteracts the negative effect of having your ovaries removed.
Awesome. That's so
I have
important.
a question. I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
No, I have a question, because I do love talking about this, but I have a friend who had a hysterectomy, full hysterectomy, because she had severe endometriosis. And endometriosis is a really complicated one, because each case is so unique. And, you know, I did some research on her case, and I realized that right now, for some people who are highly sensitive to estrogen, even after a full hysterectomy, estrogen therapy is not recommended. And she's so afraid of the effects of estrogen in her body because the pain was so severe. You know, there's definitely a well-founded fear there. So I'm thinking she's such a young woman, and now moving into, and yes, she went through the phase already, it was a couple years ago, of that severe menopausal shift with no hormonal support. So she's on the other side of that, but I do have concerns for her long-term health.
Yeah. Her bones, her immune system, muscle mass, I mean, brain health, the risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, all of that's important. So diet and lifestyle, get insulin sensitive, get keto green. That'll help with the hot flashes and those symptoms too. But also, I mean, hormonal support. And this is where it's that fine line. Like, you know, what will make you feel, and I get the fear of endometriosis. I work with so many patients with endometriosis and work to reverse that, you know, to heal that. Again, the same thing. Used to operate on it regularly, laparoscopies, you know, whatever surgeries that needed to be done. But as we worked with nutrition and diet and bioidentical hormones like bioidentical progesterone, now it's unlikely that oftentimes a physician, especially a gynecologist, will say, well, you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. It's one of the reasons I created my balance cream. Like, you can take that into your own hands. It's very, very safe transdermally, feel really good. And if you don't have your ovaries, you're not getting very much of it from your adrenal glands. And so adding that back. So in this case, like having that option to, and see how she feels, but that low inflammatory diet is game changing. Eliminating dairy, getting rid of yeast. In my endometriosis patients, always, every endometriosis patient I had an element of candidiasis, had an element of hypoglycemia or insulin resistant, had an element of that. And when I corrected those issues, when with their, you know, with my help, they corrected those issues, let's say, those symptoms went away. The pain, where I had actually a very young patient, 16-year-old, who came to me from Puerto Rico and came to my office in Georgia. Her mom brought her. And she, every month since she started her periods at 13 and a half, she missed a week of school. And she was on her going, she'd had 2 surgeries already, laparoscopic surgeries for endometriosis. She was going to have a third one to have an ovarian cyst removed, and her mom brought her to me, 16. And so, you know, I sat with her, and this is what's so interesting, because, you know, our physiology is not designed for being inside, for being in a classroom all day, for eating cereal for breakfast, bread for lunch, you know, sandwich for lunch, bread with dinner, and drinking milk, right? And so I took her off that, just like gluten, dairy free, right? We all agree that that is a really good option. So I just said, okay, definitely no dairy, because that's extra hormones. You don't need it. And, you know, I call her, you know, I say it's the Pocahontas syndrome, like, or Amazonian syndrome. You are designed to be out in nature. You are designed to be like, you know, living full, you know, full on, being a warrior, a leader. And so, you know, empowering young women, especially, right? But at any age, need to be empowered. We need to feel we don't have fat genes. We have survival genes, right? And so with that, and I added in adaptogens like one Mighty Maca Plus, this 30 superfood combination, and added an additional chasteberry support to her, and made her have these dietary changes. You know, just drink, we're going to do this, just drink water, unsweet tea. There's no more sugar in your diet. Let's cut this out. You're just not designed for it. And I swear to God, her mom called me that she was having her second period. She didn't even know it was coming. The first time since she started her period, she didn't miss a day of school. She then graduated top of her class, and she's now in college. But she didn't have that other surgery. She didn't have to have that third surgery to this day. And so that's empowering. And I've seen it. I had a patient, Lauren, oh my gosh, I'll never forget about her. She came to see me. She was 42 years old. Her husband was 10 years younger. They wanted to have a child together, but she had endometriosis. She'd had already 3 surgeries for endometriosis. And now she'd had 3 recommendations before she came to me that she needed a hysterectomy for the endometriosis. I did what I do what I write about in my Hormone Fix book, plus additional support, like plus progesterone, plus the Mighty Maca supplement, because I didn't have anything to help me. These are things I created to help me. And, added additional prescription progesterone for her. And her pain. And I did I did my own pelvic ultrasound so I could see, what was happening with her uterus. And I said, I think we can do this without surgery. Let's give it 3 months. You waited this long. You want to have a baby. Let's give it 3 months. In 3 months, she was pregnant. In 3 months, she was pregnant. So that boy now is in high school. So, I mean, these are the changes that we make. This is, I say it is a blend, and trusting, she trusted. she went for she had three physicians recommending, but her small inner voice inside her said, I just, I don't want to give up right now. Let me go one more answer, right? Let me just try one more. And she did it. She was empowered. And I feel like trust that. And, I have so many beautiful, those are miracles I've just been blessed to witness. But that's how we can change that. Woman with endometriosis, okay, you've had everything removed. There's more to the underlying physiology of endometriosis than ovarian production of hormones or uterine blood flow. There's a lot more to the endometriosis. So what happens next? That inflammation is still happening. If we don't address that, then the pain, will show up. It will manifest somewhere. So, I think that's really important to address and empower and say, okay, look, don't be afraid of the hormones. But let's look at where else we can remove toxins. Like what's in your sunscreen? Are you drinking out of plastic bottles? How much alcohol are you drinking? What, type of food are you eating? And more importantly, are you having fun in your life? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you in good relationships? Are you chit-chatting with friends and laughing? Are you doing the things in life that you love? Because that oxytocin hormone is more powerful than anything I can write on a prescription pad.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's so beautiful that actually those things are so important to our health as we age and as we just, become free of that kind of reproductive cycle, even that energy of the ovarian calling. That's like, that time of the month where your libido is super high, and then the time of the month where your energy dips a little bit. And I think that I think it's interesting to say we will always have a cyclical relationship. And I know so many women who said, oh yeah, I tracked my cycle for years and I've been postmenopausal for many years now. I continue to track my cycle with the moon. I'm like, oh, I love that. That's so beautiful, because you will always be that lunar cyclical being and there will always be that ebb and flow, but it's less intense. It's almost like it's less in your body and more this kind of overall energy as you integrate who you are with your environment, with the world that you live in. And being able to celebrate that, I think, would be so beautiful. And also the knowledge of the shift that could really make that a wonderful time in your life. Like what you're sharing of, well, you know what, maybe you only need 2 meals that are really nutritious, and maybe your energies, like little things like that no one really teaches us. It's like preparation for this new phase so that we still feel great. And the fact that connecting to our joy and nourishing ourselves, like bringing that as a priority. I think maybe for someone like me, I think of my children, like how old are they going to be when I'm probably going to be menopausal, and I'm not going to be having to take care of young babies anymore or small little kids. And I think a lot of women talk about this really powerful, like, I'm free of this. It's the empty nest. My children are grown and independent. And now I can finally really tap back into and give all of my creatrix energy to this passion project, or to this thing that it's like I'm devoted to. And I have that, but now I also want my body to meet me. I want to feel well. And maybe, you have to integrate that change into multiple aspects of your life.
So I have a question kind of spinning off what Laura was just saying. And I think a lot of the listeners were probably like thinking about this too. We actually a woman I interviewed, I had like a kind of success story, and she's just a follower who's 60 years old and thriving through menopause and actually does everything you're saying, 2 meals a day. She's keto. She's active. She's beautiful and having a wonderful experience in her 60s. And something she mentioned as well, and I want to get your kind of your tips for it is sex. Sex is like women. She's like, I'm 60. My husband and I still like to have sex. You know, we're still very much attracted to each other, even after quarantine. And it's one of those things where, you know, sometimes you need a little bit of help, like, because there can be some dryness and stuff. But what are your, you know, like Dr. Anna's best tips for good sex?
Oh my gosh, I love this. And this is such an important topic because, like, you know, as women, as we age, right, we're going to get wrinkles, right? We're going to get wrinkles, I like call them laugh lines and smile lines. Well, if they're happening here, they're happening down there.
Mm.
And it is guaranteed. I mean, it's just part of the aging process, but there's so much we can do to prevent it. But the thing is, when this is happening, what else is happening? We're having dryness with intercourse, or we're having discharge and odor after intercourse, discomfort for days, bladder infections. All of these things can happen from, you know, the changes that are happening in the vagina. The vagina will get more alkaline, so there's more of a fishy or musty odor. And look, that doesn't have to be that way. The vaginal tissue is so vascular, so elastic, so amazing that we can improve that tissue. And I say, you know, it's the most important real estate of our body is clitoris to anus. This area of our bottom is so important. Clitoris has 9,000 nerve endings. As we age, that will atrophy if we let it. So of course, like if you don't use it, you lose it. There's that. But, you know, like, so general massage is great, but that's one of the reasons why I created Julva, my anti-aging cream for the vulva, topical hormone, because when I closed my medical practice, my patients were like, Dr. Anna, no one will give us your vaginal hormone creams or your topical hormone creams to help me and, you know, to help with dryness and blah, blah, blah. And so, and it's amazing. I had a patient come back to me after using my cream, like for her follow-up visit. And she saw me in the hallway and she's like, Dr. Anna, my vagina is 21 again. I mean, she was in her late 50s. I mean, that's how powerful our body is at restoring and healing itself. And that's what we want, because this dryness, intimacy is really important. And half of us, you know, I guess it's 40 to 50% of us are maybe in a second marriage or divorced and, you know, wanting to have a healthy marriage, a healthy sex life. And what they run into is that they can't have intercourse, they have dryness, they're having they have these issues of discomfort, odor, consequences after the fact, recurrent urinary tract infections. And sexual intimacy is that one way couples unite, bond, stay together, because it increases oxytocin. It increases the hormone of connection. And so whether we're actually having, you know, intercourse and orgasm or climax, or we're just connecting, feeling intimate, you know, that's powerful. But I have two stories I want to share with you. So I have this beautiful woman. She was in her mid 60s, and she's on her second marriage from age 45, and through her menopause, you know, things got uncomfortable. So they would have their, you know, the schedule in weekly intimacy, but after a while they weren't able to have intercourse. So she came across my product, like one of the first users of my product in 2016 of Julva. She started using it. And, you know, and she wrote me about it. She goes, you know, my husband and I, now we have amazing sex. We're able to have intercourse again, because men get oftentimes if they're having issues. I mean, like, there's other things we do. That's a symptom of cardiovascular disease. I'm all for men using Julva, and I created Man of Steel a product to help them along their way, to help natural erectile function and cardiovascular function, all those benefits. But, you know, like, so often what happens, men get Viagra and women are struck with vaginal dryness or can't continue to pleasure. They have to stop because it's uncomfortable. And that, you know, can create a major disconnect. And so she's like, you know, just that at 63, she goes, sex is so important to us in our relationship. And this has been just game changing for us, especially after not having sex for years. And then I have this other lovely, because there's no age limit. I have this lovely woman who was actually in a live interview with me. So with, you know, hundreds of people watching. So I love this. She's 72 years old. She'd been married for 30 years, and her husband her husband passed away from cancer. So she went to her, I think it was like her, you know, her 50-year high school reunion, something like that. She was like 68 or 69. She went to her high school reunion, and reconnected with her high school boyfriend. I get goosebumps when I tell this story. It's so beautiful. So, and like within months they were married, and lo and behold, they weren't able to have sex. And she struggled. She like, they struggled, they used lube, they used everything. And they're like, they're just, that high school passion was reignited, and they weren't able to consummate, right? They weren't able to consummate. And so she brought on, she goes, and then Dr. Anna, I found your Julva. And she goes, Jimmy, come tell Dr. Anna about Julva. And he's like, oh my God, this is so good. It is so good. She goes, we were able to have sex again and connect in these ways that just reignited. They were 72 on this phone call. And I just love this story. I love this story, and I love their willingness to share from the rooftops, essentially in front of hundreds of strangers, their story and their intimacy. But that's how important it is. And it's not the end all be all. So whether we're having intercourse or not having intercourse, but having pleasure, having climax, having, connection, that's really important. And if there's a reason that's preventable or reversible, that's getting in the way of us doing that, we need to do everything we can to help. So, like from pelvic floor exercises to healthy, clean lubes like coconut oil, or there's some great clean lubes like Good News, but using clean sources, using Julva, which is restorative too. It's not just for that moment, it's going to work for the long haul. And these are things that, like, we have to do these things. And then again, of course, diet and nutrition. The vaginal health is a function of intestinal health. So cleaning up our gut, getting rid of yeast and candida, improving our, in general, hormonal balance. But I think that when it comes to sex, people are giving up too soon. And then this is the other thing, especially in relationships, in the dating world, midlife. It's like, oh, well, I had plenty of moisture the first couple times we had intercourse, but now in relationship, I'm dry again. I'm like, well, that's, that moisture, that lubrication, especially when you're with someone for a first time, I mean, that's a defense mechanism, right? We're going to flush out those sperm, those toxins. We don't want an invading, so there's a defense mechanism to that. And it's often sadly interpreted of like, creates people to go from partner to partner. And the same is true with men and erectile function to a degree. So it's important, that novelty piece, right? And, and it's, we have to work with our physiology in a really healthy way so we can have that relationship that lasts a lifetime. Because honestly, there's, nothing better when you can communicate and have that love of your life, soulmate relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I think I love those stories. I love sharing, I love hearing them. And I think it's, again, just so important and so true in that message that, at any age that, orgasming is important, that having, intimacy is important, and that you can have it and you can thrive. All right, we're out of time, so I'm gonna let you go. But I wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your wonderful wisdom and your stories with us. I know you are drcabeca.com and on Instagram at The Girlfriend Doctor, and I will put all the links in the show notes, and make sure to check out her books. We will also link the Hormone Fix and Keto Green 16. Anything else you want to add or share? Anything?
Well, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Also, you were so wonderful, and just, I love your story and everything that you have to offer and your passion for service. So it's so sweet to connect. I'm so glad you're on this podcast.
I love it. It's so good to connect with you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm here to help. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everybody, make sure to subscribe to Body Wise Podcast and leave a review, and make sure you go follow Dr. Anna.